Hello, creepy kids and fine opera goers. This is Aidan, and today we are drawing the Phantom of the Opera, which, of course, for those of you who watched the Universal Monsters Mega Collection, you already saw the sneak preview of the art in this video. So if you are just going to go ahead and watch it now, that is a surefire sign that you really are one of my best supporters, so thank you so very much. But you know what? It's an honor to talk about this film anyway, because we are approaching the 100th anniversary of Universal's production of the Phantom of the Opera, which, for me personally, I still think is the only movie version that got it right. So first of all, I am going to admit that I have never read the serialized story by Gaston Leroux, which the Phantom of the Opera originates from. What works about this film so much better than a lot of the other ones do is just that it keeps the Phantom as a villain, but he is still very much a tragic, sympathetic villain, but we don't force the audience too much to have sympathy for him. Again, go back to my video for King Kong and talking about when sympathy for the monster is done right and when it is just hitting the audience over the head to feel sorry for the guy. A lot of other versions of the Phantom of the Opera what they're really missing is that they always go for that Harvey Dent transformation where the Phantom was like a nice guy before, then you get a very convenient acid thrown in the face and that turns him bad and yada yada yada. The Lon Chaney version really does challenge the viewer because, like the book, the Phantom it seemed like he was destined to be born a villain. Unlike other versions which do go for the accident supervillain kind of origin thing, the Phantom was born deformed. It seemed like he was set out for a bad life ahead of him when you come out of your mom's womb looking like basically a living skeleton. Eric is a fascinating character, and even if the movie kind of glosses over a lot of the history that I think the Phantom had in the book with like working for a sultan and designing death traps and things like that, I think that's been even explored with spin-offs and stuff like that in novels and comic books and whatnot. You get the feeling that Eric has already had a long and fascinating and painful life prior to the events that happen in this story, but that makes him all the more richer and it makes him all the more interesting. And then of course there's the look itself. Now, I'm sure there's been a lot of nice makeup effects on other Phantoms before. The Herbert Lom one had decent makeup on it, but when you're talking about the Phantom of the Opera and Lon Chaney, of course you gotta talk about that makeup that he did, and there's really nothing more I can add to a makeup that's been super impressive for 100 years now, because I think this really is Chaney's crowning achievement in both makeup and performance. Now, of course, I did an entire week's worth of drawing videos of Lon Chaney characters when I drew London After Midnight and The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and even bizarrely enough, The Unknown with Alonzo the Armless. Thank you, patrons. But the Phantom of the Opera was one I've been dying to draw for a long time. I had really wanted to draw Eric back when I did that Lon Chaney tribute series, and I just had to draw him now because it's too good of a makeup, it's too good of a character, and it's too good of a performance to overlook. Chaney's Phantom really does balance the sympathy and the villainous angles perfectly, to the point where he's villainous enough to keep this as a good horror story, but he's sympathetic enough that you do feel bad for the guy, especially when he comes to his end, and it's a very earned ending. It's also interesting for me to talk about Eric, the Phantom of the Opera, any version of him, and sort of compare him to, of course, my own creation, my own villainous character, Scapula. It's odd for me to say that the Phantom was not an inspiration for Scapula, but I do wish he had been. I wish I could have gone back and actually read The Phantom of the Opera or paid more attention to really study the Chaney film. I think it would have had a good effect on the Scapula series to have taken a few cues, or even to have done a full-blown parody of Phantom of the Opera with Scapula in the role. Whether or not that would have been a good comedic opportunity, or whether or not I could have applied a lot of that great villainy and sympathy angle to my own skull-faced villain, well, bear with me. So that's Eric, that's the Phantom of the Opera, that's Lon Chaney. We're passing the century mark of this great movie, this great performance, this great character, and of course, here's hoping that he lives on for much, much longer. Thank you very much for watching, Creeper Kids. Glut your soul on this accursed ugliness, and see you next time. Bye-bye.